This is a Middle East Congress, so you'll forgive me if I quickly take you back to the context in which Islamic capital markets have to operate in the Middle East region. I mean, the IMF recently pointed out that $300 billion was being sapped from GCC government revenues due to the oil price decline. And all the oil exporting countries in the Middle East will report fiscal deficits in 2015. And the greatest burden falling upon Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Bahrain. But I think what I'd like to stress right at the start is that we share that analysis at HSBC, but also would focus on the depth of reserves of these oil exporting countries. And I think it's proved by the resilience of the credit spreads of all the GCC countries that this oil price decline has been taken in its stride by the capital markets. And I think this will help sustain Islamic finance in the region. So we're looking at a region with a strong capacity to accept more debt, and also, I think, a strong inclination to use Islamic capital markets. I think it's worth stressing, though, that Islamic finance represents quite a small part of global financial assets. The IMF estimates Islamic banking assets to be 0.4% of global financial assets, and Sukuk, which is the benchmark capital markets product in Islamic finance, is a mere 0.1% of global financial assets. These are not huge percentages, but they are growing fast, and we see the market growing at least by 20% for the foreseeable future, and Islamic finance market exceeding US dollars 2 trillion before too long.
Well, the mainstream relevance of Islamic finance depends on which market. So, for example, in our country, in Britain, it is mainstream because it gives Muslims as car owners, homeowners, the opportunity to practice their faith and be good British citizens and good Muslims at the same time. But it also gives British companies exporting to the Islamic world the opportunity to have, like the Sukuk, which Robert talked about, backed by an ECGD finance. ECGD, interestingly enough, has been financing export products for the last 15 years. So Islamic finance mainstream relevance to me is this, that it is bringing a new type of customers into the mainstream financial services industry. Islamic finance was not created by a royal decree or an edict by anybody. It was created by the demand of the consumers. It is giving the opportunity to bring new types of customers. It's also, in my view, connecting the financial economy with the real economy. And I think the future mainstream relevance will come when Islamic finance partners with socially responsible investments. And there is a commonality. And in that Middle Eastern market, what's happening is more and more issuance is happening Islamically, because whether it is Sukuk or capital markets or equity instruments, an Islamic issuance allows both Islamic investors and conventional investors to participate in it. So companies wanting to tap the market, whether equity or debt markets, are going out and saying, I want to have the deepest market share. And in my view, finally, there is a lot of innovation, and you talked about technology, and that's where Islamic finance would become relevant. Areas like crowdfunding, areas like B2B platforms. So there is a lot of work which is ahead of us, but that is what I believe is giving Islamic finance mainstream relevance. 80% of the Islamic financial $2 trillion of assets are in the banking model. Now, that model is an expensive model, it's a difficult model, and that model is so large, it will not adjust for Islamic finance. As a result, all the innovation which will happen in the banking model will be primarily replication of conventional banking products. And Islamic banks obviously cannot go too far into the financial economy, so that puts a limit on innovation. In my view, the biggest hope for innovation is from asset management in the real economy, in the takaful space. With time, regulations will become much more difficult. But in the non-banking platform, asset management, takaful, and the whole area of savings, pensions, and other innovations, and bringing asset management and takaful as Azima is trying to do, I believe there will be a lot of innovation.